Alex, let me know when you're ready, please. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this evening's planning meeting. We have a number of meetings going on this evening, but tonight we will start with the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to permit short-term accommodations in downtown community improvement plan meeting. I'd like to welcome members of council, staff, those of us who are joining on Zoom, and of course, everybody who has come from the public and is joining us in the gallery, including those of you who are joining us from the media. We'll start tonight's meeting by calling the meeting to order and noting members present at 6:32 p.m. We will begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathering on the land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. We would like to recognize that we are in the Robinson Superior Treaty Territory, and the land on which we are gathered today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. Specifically, we acknowledge the neighboring community of Mishkon First Nation, to whom we have great respect. We also recognize the contributions of all Indigenous people, including the Métis, in shaping and strengthening the community and province of Ontario. Thank you, in Miigwech. We will now move on to item number 2, approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Opato, resolved that the agenda for the public meeting, Planning Act, scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024, be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 3, a declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Hearing and seeing no conflict, we'll move forward to new business. This is a public meeting under Section 28 of the Planning Act for consideration of the adoption of a downtown Wawa Community Improvement Plan. The purpose and effect of the proposed downtown Wawa Community Improvement Plan is to encourage and promote revitalization and private investment in commercial properties in the area, particularly along Broadway Avenue. The proposed downtown Wawa Community Improvement Plan includes a variety of financial incentive programs designed to support new investment in downtown urban design guidelines have also been developed to support the vision and goals of the plan. It is noted in order to appeal any decision of council to the Ontario Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, the appellant must have outlined comments or concerns at the public meeting or submitted comments and concerns to council in writing. Would the Deputy Clerk please confirm that proper notice of the public meeting for the Downtown Community Improvement Plan was issued?
Notice of this public meeting was posted online on the municipal website at wawa.cc, online at wawanews.ca, and advertised on the local radio station Jam FM and its website for the 20-day period.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Anita Sott, who is on Zoom from the consulting firm WSIP, to present her report. This item is listed under item number 4, new business, 4.1, Downtown Community Improvement Plan. Anita, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Great, thank you. I would just like to confirm that everyone can hear me.
Loud and clear, and we
Perfect.
might ask Alex to turn it down a bit.
Okay. And may I ask for permission to share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay, I assume that that is coming through.
Yes, correct. We can see.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. As stated in the introduction, my name is Anita Sott, and I'm a senior planner with WSP, a consulting firm in Ottawa, and I'm also the consultant project manager for the Downtown Wawa CIP. Together with my project team, we've been working with the municipality since October of last year to prepare a new downtown community improvement plan, or CIP for short, as well as a series of downtown urban design guidelines. Both documents have been available in final draft form on the municipality's project webpage for public review. And at tonight's statutory public meeting, we will provide an overview of the components of the final draft CIP and urban design guidelines. So I'll begin tonight's presentation by introducing the purpose of CIPs in general and the specific areas of focus for the downtown Wawa CIP, followed by a brief overview of our project process and the community engagement that we've done to date. I'll also review the proposed community improvement project area where the CIP and the urban design guidelines would apply, and I'll walk through the CIP vision and goals, the proposed financial incentive programs, and some of the municipal leadership activities that we have recommended take place in the downtown. My colleague Jen, a senior urban designer with WSP, is here with me this evening, and she will provide a brief overview of the purpose and components of the final draft urban design guidelines and their relationship to the CIP, and then we'll end with next steps. So firstly, what is a CIP? A community improvement plan, or a CIP, is a planning and economic development tool available to all municipalities in Ontario under the Municipal Act and the Planning Act legislation. And it's intended to promote economic development and community revitalization, things like beautification and attracting local business activity. Through a CIP, municipalities can enable a wide range of programs and policies that are aimed at revitalizing targeted areas within a community, such as downtown Wawa. The programs in a CIP are typically in the form of grants to assist private property owners in improving their properties, like revitalizing facades and signage, for example, through to full site redevelopment. And the financial incentive programs that are in a CIP are always tailored to the needs and goals of the specific community. In terms of what is actually in a CIP, what comprises the document, all municipal CIP documents are generally composed of the same sections. And I wanted to point out some of the key sections are the vision and goals, which establish what the community hopes to achieve within the boundaries of the community improvement project area. And these goals also assist in evaluating CIP applications. CIPs also contain a municipal leadership strategy with recommendations for public community improvements that the municipality would initiate, which can result in private property owners seeing municipal leadership and investment in the community. And this can motivate private property owners to make improvements to their own sites. Council is not obligated to implement the recommendations of the municipal activities in the CIP, but they are there to serve as a reference point and provide ideas for staff and council when planning for improvements in the area. And the most important part, the real crux of the CIP, is the financial incentive programs, which specify the types of projects and project costs that may be eligible for grants or rebates. So very briefly, I just wanted to explain how a CIP is typically developed and how we've developed the CIP before you through the project process. They first must be enabled through a municipality's official plan policies, which you have in place in the Municipality of Wawa official plan. Ultimately, council must adopt a bylaw to formally designate the community improvement project area, as well as a separate bylaw to adopt the CIP document. And following adoption, if no appeals are received, the municipality may then begin to implement the CIP and accept and review applications. So as I mentioned, the development of the downtown CIP is supported in the existing Wawa official plan and was also identified in council's current strategic plan, the municipality's recent 5-year tourism strategy and action plan, and the housing action plan as a key action to support tourism, economic development, downtown attractiveness, and increased housing opportunities as well. I did want to note that the municipality previously developed a downtown CIP in 2008, which at that time included 7 financial incentive programs to be made available in the area in red on the slide, but that CIP was never implemented. And as so much time has passed since 2008, the municipality identified the need to refresh and develop a new CIP, which reflects the community's current needs and priorities for the downtown. And to further support a cohesive vision and achieving a look and feel for the downtown, the new CIP is complemented by downtown urban design guidelines, which are intended to guide property owners as well as the municipality in designing aspects of community improvement projects to contribute to this vision. So with specific focus to downtown Wawa, the key areas that the CIP intends to promote are new investment and housing opportunities downtown, particularly affordable housing options through residential units on the upper stories of buildings. Overall, encouraging a sense of place, more vibrancy, participation, and community well-being. Specifically, the redevelopment of underutilized buildings and sites or vacant properties, some of which we already see underway in the community through various development applications, and identifying potential municipal leadership activities. In terms of our project process, we kicked it off in October with some key community engagement activities in Wawa, which I'll describe in later slides. We then prepared a background and directions report to document the community input that we received, and this really set the foundation for the new CIP. A draft CIP and urban design guidelines were then prepared late last year and presented recently at a public open house that was both virtual and in person on January 25th to receive community feedback. Following this, we quickly made minor revisions to the CIP document for clarification based on some public comments that we received that evening. And the final draft documents were published for the public review period 20 days prior to this evening's meeting under the Planning Act. So after tonight, we will prepare the final CIP and urban design guidelines to address any feedback received from the public and members of council. And we will then bring the CIP and urban design guidelines forward for council's consideration of adoption in March. As I mentioned, community engagement has been undertaken throughout the project, and it's really been integral to identify the community's priorities for downtown improvements. So many of the recommendations and the financial incentive programs that found their way into the CIP directly reflect what we've heard from community members and local business owners. In October, members of the project team, including Jen, traveled to Wawa to meet with municipal staff and members of council, local business owners, and members of the community to participate in a downtown walking tour that focused on Broadway Avenue, as well as a visioning workshop. And through that workshop, a draft vision statement and goals were developed, and priorities for urban design and specific sites which could benefit from improvements were identified. We also conducted community and business surveys to inform the downtown improvement priorities even more broadly, and we received a very successful total of 276 responses, which is a wonderful survey turnout for a community of any size. And I just wanted to share some of the words in the word cloud on the slide, which is how community members envisioned downtown Wawa in the future. Respondents also shared specific ideas about priorities and opportunities for downtown improvements. And as I noted, the public open house in January also included a series of interactive questions that promoted some good discussion about the proposed incentive programs in the CIP and some of the municipal leadership activities, as well as priorities for beautification and facade improvements, the redevelopment of vacant lots, streetscaping and crosswalk improvements, and how to make downtown generally more safe, vibrant, and inclusive. And the results of all of these community engagement activities are documented in detail in the background report for the project, which is available on the project website. And together, based on the community engagement results, the following vision statement was developed for the CIP. The municipality of Wawa is committed to cultivating an inclusive, thriving, and welcoming downtown that actively embraces and uplifts a culturally diverse community, nurturing both social and economic vitality. So moving on to some of the more specifics about the CIP, the Community Improvement Project area, where the CIP and urban design guidelines are proposed to apply, and the area in which properties may be eligible to apply for financial incentive programs, is outlined in black on the aerial map and is consistent with the area identified in the 2008 CIP. So this generally includes Broadway Avenue and the east side of McKinley, from Algoma Street in the north to Main Street in the south. And the majority of properties in this area are designated in the official plan as commercial central area, which is the land use designation applying to the downtown. I'll now go over the 12 proposed financial incentive programs that are in the final draft CIP, 3 of which are focused on promoting more downtown housing opportunities, and 9 of which are more general grants and rebates for commercial businesses. Each grant in the CIP outlines a maximum amount of financial assistance to successful applicants for eligible project costs and subject to very specific eligibility criteria under each grant. And I did want to state that applicants may apply for multiple programs to assist with funding a single project, provided that no 2 programs are used to pay for the same costs. Also, it is important to note that it is always at the sole discretion of council which programs in the CIP may receive funding year to year and which programs may be awarded based on applications that are received and the community priorities in any given year. So the 3 housing-focused financial incentive programs aim to assist applicants with the costs of undertaking professional, technical studies and plans like a site plan development to develop an affordable housing project. Also to encourage property owners to create new residential dwelling units on the upper stories of buildings, which is highlighted in red, for example, on the photo. This would be new development, such as an addition to an existing building. And there is a 3rd grant that aims to offset the cost of rehabilitating or converting existing upper story units in an existing commercial building to residential or office uses. And the grant amounts available to successful applicants to these 3 programs vary depending on the program, but they range from up to a maximum of $4,000 to $10,000. The general financial incentive programs available, which are focused on improvements to commercial properties in the community improvement project area, include an accessibility grant to improve access to commercial properties for people of all ages and abilities, a beautification grant to help with minor improvements or what we call quick wins that enhance the overall visual appeal of a business, things like window displays, lighting, or planters. A brownfields redevelopment grant is proposed to encourage remediation, rehabilitation, and redevelopment of brownfield sites, something like a former gas station, for example. There is also a building activation grant proposed for vacant spaces to assist with the cost of converting and rehabilitating existing vacant commercial buildings and properties into new commercial uses like new retail. And we have a building facade and signage improvement grant, which is often a very popular and successful CIP grant for many municipalities, which encourages aesthetic improvements to the exterior of commercial buildings, such as facade restoration, repair or replacements, replacement of materials and cladding, and improvements to signage, for example. And on this slide, we have at the bottom an example of an actual CIP-funded facade improvement that occurred in Pembroke, Ontario, where WSP has previously completed a CIP. And available grant amounts for the programs I just mentioned range from up to $1,500 for those quick win beautification projects to $10,000 for something that's a more significant undertaking like a full facade improvement, depending on the program and the project. The remaining financial incentive programs include an energy efficiency grant to help fund improvements that result in enhanced energy efficiency, including things like replacement of insulation, appliances with more energy efficient ones, doors and window replacements, those types of projects. We've also proposed a planning and building fee grant, which aims to assist with the costs of planning application fees or building permit and demolition permit application fees. We also have a public art grant to support additional mural installations and other artistic works downtown. And finally, a tax increment equivalent grant, which is a property tax rebate designed to assist property owners with the potential property tax increase that results from a property being reassessed by MPAC after a property owner undertakes significant development, redevelopment, or major improvements like a major addition or conversion of upper stories of a building to residential units. A key aspect of the CIP that I mentioned previously are the recommendations for municipal leadership activities that would show the municipality's commitment to making improvements to the public realm and potentially municipally owned areas downtown. So some of the key recommendations that we have included in the CIP, very much based on what we heard from community input as well, are enhanced gateway and wayfinding signage features. We have an example on the slide here, and another example is the downtown Wawa gateway feature at the south end. And this includes directional signage and business and amenity directories, which could be placed both within downtown and outside of downtown to guide visitors and the traveling public that may otherwise only pass through to visit Broadway Avenue and the downtown amenities like the boardwalk and the Wawa Lake waterfront that have seen so much investment. We are also recommending some consideration of additional public art installations, like the existing vinyl murals along Broadway on buildings, which can help add vibrancy and reflect the culture of the municipality and the area and reflect that in the streetscape. We have also included some discussion of potential more significant improvements to streetscaping and key intersections, such as pilot projects for narrowing Broadway Avenue through the installation of bump outs at key intersections, which would help contribute to an increased sense of pedestrian safety by shortening some of those long crossing distances, and could also help improve aesthetics by adding some space for either permanent or seasonal street furniture and landscape elements. And Jen will speak to that a little bit more shortly. And we've also recommended consideration of temporarily repurposing some of the on-street parking along Broadway, which may be underused at certain times of year, and seasonally converting that to parkettes or patio spaces to provide more opportunities for residents and visitors to sit and linger along Broadway. Another key recommended municipal leadership activity in the CIP is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment that would be initiated by the municipality to more broadly permit residential uses downtown. So following discussion at the public open house, we did revise the final draft CIP to hopefully better clarify the intent of this potential zoning bylaw amendment, which we're recommending to permit multiple residential units only on the upper stories of buildings that contain ground level commercial uses within the C1 zone, which is the zone that applies to the downtown area. Currently in the zoning bylaw, the C1 zone only permits one residential unit in the upper story, which is accessory to an existing commercial use. We also recommend that this amendment would specify that any standalone multi-unit residential uses, for example, a small apartment building, which may be proposed on vacant or underutilized lands, may be permitted, but it would require a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment. So this type of zoning bylaw amendment would ensure that the zoning bylaw better conforms to the official plan, which is more supportive of downtown housing than the zoning bylaw currently is, as well as some of the municipality's recent policy documents like the Housing Action Plan. And it would still ensure that the downtown remains primarily commercial and help bring some additional residential uses in, because the more residents there are downtown, the more potential customers and activity occurs downtown. I also want to clarify that this recommended amendment is not being proposed or considered for approval as part of the CIP project. It is only a recommendation for the future, and it would be a consideration as one of the potential activities that the municipality could undertake to support the CIP's implementation and some of those housing-focused financial incentive programs. So for clarification, if the municipality were to propose a zoning bylaw amendment like this in the future, it would go through a separate public process under the Planning Act, and it would be considered by council for adoption with specific opportunities like a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. I will now turn it over to my colleague Jen to briefly discuss the final draft urban design guidelines.
Thanks, Anita. And just to confirm, can everyone hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to take us through some of the highlights of the urban design guidelines, and just as maybe a refresher or as an introduction for those who aren't familiar with it, urban design is really about shaping how a place looks and feels and how people interact within these spaces. So the urban design guidelines for the downtown are going to work hand in hand with the CIP. These are not requirements, but rather helpful directions which aim to achieve the vision and goals for downtown. They do this by providing examples of what improvements can look like and by providing guidelines for municipal staff to use in evaluating development applications, as well as implementing public improvements. If I can get the next slide, please. So some of the elements covered in the urban design guidelines include public realm features, such as street furnishings, public art, gateways and signage, and the design of public areas, such as the Goose Nest Market. It also covers elements in the private realm, so that's more private development, guiding that development and helping to realize the attractive pedestrian-friendly building frontages that we're looking for in the downtown. Next slide, thank you. As an example of the improvements that the CIP and the urban design guidelines are encouraging, we provided 2 renderings that highlight potential enhancements for the block between Ganley and Ontario Street along Broadway. So that would be the block with the post office and municipal buildings on it. These enhancements could include features such as temporary on-street patio space. This might be a space used for eating your lunch, or maybe it's catching up with a friend you run into at the post office. As well as new movable planting beds and planters for greening the corridor in the warmer months of the year. We've also shown a painted intersection as a potential improvement to bring a playfulness to the street and communicate to motorists that this is a pedestrian zone and to pay greater attention. Next slide. We also wanted to show some year-round improvements and what this condition might look like in the winter. So some of those year-round features that could be introduced in the downtown might include things like hanging baskets, updated banners, and the decorative lighting that's a key feature I would think of downtown Wawa, as well as amenities such as waste receptacles, benches, and bike parking, and curb bump outs at the corners, which would help to slow down traffic by visually reducing the size of the street and make for safer, shorter pedestrian crossings, as Anita had mentioned earlier. These bump out areas would also allow for additional snow storage in winter, and we've shown some flexible reflective posts here to help identify the curb locations to aid motorists and winter maintenance teams during and after snowfall events. And with that, I think I can pass it back to Anita for next steps.
Great, thank you, Jen. And before wrapping up our presentation, I wanted to briefly reiterate the next steps in the CIP project. So after this evening, we will move to prepare the final version of the CIP and urban design guidelines to reflect and address any council or public comments received. And that final CIP and urban design guidelines will be brought forward by municipal staff for council's consideration of adoption in March. And if they are adopted and no appeals are received, the CIP and urban design guidelines would be ready for implementation. And staff may begin marketing the CIP, pre-consulting with property owners and business owners who are interested in making applications, and accept those applications for financial incentive programs. So with that, thank you very much on behalf of Jen and myself and our other colleague Porter, who is also on the line. Thank you for allowing us to speak to you tonight about the proposed downtown CIP and urban design guidelines. That concludes our presentation, but we're more than happy to answer any questions and, of course, listen to any public delegations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anita. Manuela, please indicate if the municipality has received any written comments, and please read the comments for the record if we have.
My mic is.
So it's not a me problem, for the record.
Okay. Sorry, Algoma Public Health has no comments on the application.
I understand that John Armstrong from the Masonry Council of Ontario wishes to speak on the matter. John, are you there? While we wait for John, does anyone else wish to make a public comment on this application? Anyone from the gallery? On the presentation. Hearing none. I'll ask one more time for any comments from
the Masonry Council.
So I'm not hearing any comments from the Masonry Council of Ontario. So I'll thank you to the Algoma Public Health for submitting their comments in writing. And please note that any person who provided a written submission will be notified of Council's decision in this matter. Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to coming to a decision on this proposed downtown community improvement plan. This public meeting, we will now move on to item 4.3. On the agenda, which is the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for short-term accommodations. And I'll now invite Maury O'Neill, CEO, to make a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Hopefully you can hear me. And if I may, Mayor, you could excuse Nita, Jen, and company as the portion of the CIP meeting is now concluded.
Correct, yes. The downtown community improvement plan is now concluded.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And Alex, if you could upload the presentation.
Sorry, just 1 second, Maury. It appears that there is a public comment.
Okay.
So Council will take into consideration any public comments received. There is now an opportunity for the public to make any comments. Absolutely, yes, there is an opportunity now for you to speak. Oh, you do need a mic because anybody on Zoom. Did you want to come up to the podium, please, Heidi?
No, it's okay. I just wanted to take a moment to express to the public that is here and those that will be listening that the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee that is under the municipal umbrella has been a large part of the process through the Community Improvement Plan. And we encourage Council to adopt this plan. I think that I probably speak on behalf of the rest of the committee when I say that it's been very well done, and the thought process has been thorough. So I just wanted to voice that publicly, that as a committee under the municipal umbrella, we encourage our local or our council to adopt the program. That's about it. I just wanted to vocalize that. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Was there any other public comments before we officially make this portion of the council agenda closed and move forward? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4.3, the offense. So Maury, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. And tonight we are, as a municipality, holding a second public meeting, a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act, to consider proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to planning documents of the municipality, which, if approved, would permit short-term accommodations in all residential zones within the municipal boundaries. Next slide, please. Thank you. The purpose and effect of the official plan amendments specifically will be to set policy within our official plan that allow the implementing zoning bylaw to permit short-term accommodations in residential zones. The official plan amendments will, number one, recognize that short-term rental accommodations have occurred in Wawa for decades, and they do need to be managed to permit such uses to occur in residential areas while protecting the purpose and function of residential zones. Number two, policies will be included in the official plan that will require the municipality to enact an amending zoning bylaw and establish a new licensing bylaw to regulate short-term rental accommodations. The policies to be included in the official plan will define what a short-term rental accommodation is, and it will be defined as a dwelling unit or part of a dwelling unit used to provide temporary accommodation for no more than 29 consecutive days. And it does not include a hotel, a motel, a commercial RV park, or a bed and breakfast. Those particular accommodations are defined and dealt with in the official planning zoning bylaw in different sections. Number two, short-term rental accommodations will be permitted in zones that also permit residential dwelling units with a maximum of 3 short-term rentals being permitted per building unit. It will also provide a policy that sets out that that council may approve a licensing system and adopt regulations to minimize any negative impacts that short-term rental accommodations may have. Next slide, please. As well as changes to the Wawa official plan, amendments will be made to the Wawa zoning bylaw. Those specific amendments, if approved, would establish the following. Again, it would include that there is a specific definition for short-term rental accommodations, and that short-term rentals are secondary to the primary purpose of a dwelling being a home or residential use for an owner. The short-term rentals must be seen as being secondary to that use. Number two, the zoning bylaw would separate that dwelling units that are rented for longer periods are different than those that are rented for short-term being 29 days or less. Anything more than 29 days would be considered a long-term lease and not defined as a short-term rental accommodation. It will also put in specific definitions that our current planning documents do not include, and that is that there are certain commercial accommodations, motels, hotels, and bed and breakfasts that are not considered short-term rental, even though they may rent less than 29 days. Again, short-term rental accommodations would be permitted in all residential zones where residential dwelling units are permitted, but there would be a maximum cap of 3 short-term rental accommodations permitted per dwelling. Number 5, there would be parking requirements. As already defined in the zoning bylaw, parking is required, and in our new bylaw, we would propose that a parking of 1 space is provided per bedroom or sleep area that's rented. And lastly, Short-term rental accommodations may not be located in accessory buildings such as a garage or a shed. Next slide. Short-term licensing and the bylaw and requirements. Public safety is a significant concern to council, and council identified that the risk of the municipality not addressing the fact that there are approximately 30 short-term units in the municipality was a grave concern, particularly because most municipalities in Ontario have introduced short-term accommodation requirements and licensing systems, since the fire code and the building code have specific requirements for short-term rentals. And the following would need to be checked for compliance to ensure safety of not only the renters who stay in accommodations, but also the owners. So some of the items that would be included in a future licensing bylaw for council is that there would have to be an early fire warning system, a smoke alarm in each bedroom or sleeping area. There would also have to be one carbon monoxide unit in the building. There has to be certain means of ingress and egress and a way to exit the building in case of emergencies. Fire extinguishers have to be contained in each unit, and emergency lighting would be required and recommended, although it's not mandatory. There's also certain requirements regarding the size of sleeping units, bedrooms, and they all must be checked in compliance with the building code. A municipal short-term licensing bylaw was presented to council at its last meeting 2 weeks ago in draft form, and it is under development and will be under public consultation over the next month should council move ahead. The licensing bylaw is not part of the public meeting this evening. It would require a separate bylaw to be approved by council at a later date. So overall, all these amendments to Wawa's planning documents and policies are basically required because there are no definitions in our documents. And we do know that short-term rentals have occurred in Wawa for years. And when the last official plan and zoning bylaw was adopted in 2010 and 2015, short-term accommodations weren't really a popular occurrence throughout the province of Ontario. But recently, in the last couple of years, have become quite noticeable in the community. And council felt that we must update our planning documents to make sure these types of accommodations were included. It's also concerning that all the short-term accommodations operating in the municipality are considered illegal today. They're illegal because they're not permitted in our planning documents. Therefore, those existing short-term rentals would be deemed illegal should anything occur. And we as a municipality believe that it's in the best interest of our community that they become legal, subject to meeting licensing and permitting requirements. Short-term rentals have many benefits to the local economy and to the operators, and by legalizing them, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation may then assess the uses of any dwellings to determine appropriate tax rates to be applied. It's important to note that considerable research and time was spent by staff and other municipalities, and as a general rule, the Municipal Property Corporation deems short-term rentals as primary residential use. Therefore, a residential tax class is normally applied. As previously stated, staff did review the situation in the community, and in November 2023, a review of just what was being listed on the online Airbnb listings for Wawa showed 21 properties listed for short-term rentals. It appeared that half of those rentals were for an entire property or for areas or units that had more than 3 bedrooms. Half of the 15 of the properties were in the town site, with the others located in Michipicoten River Village or along the highway or in rural areas. In contrast to other municipalities that have a high proportion of vacation or second homes, the short-term rentals in Wawa have not to date resulted in any problems or nuisances that have been reported to the municipality. So on the technical side for council and members of the public, there are certain sections within the official plan first that need to be amended. And I will quickly just review those. In section B1.3, bed and breakfast establishment and short-term rentals will be permitted subject to the policies of B17. In B17, short-term rentals and bed and breakfast establishments will be subject to the following requirements. Any short-term rental must preserve the character of the dwelling as a private residence, and only a maximum of 3 rentals may occur per dwelling or building. Any short-term rental accommodation must be licensed in accordance with a future municipal licensing bylaw. And any bed and breakfast located within a single detached dwelling must be contained in a building that serves as the principal residence of the owner operator. Essentially, a bed and breakfast can only be located when the owner or the renter of the building is present in the building. Thank you. And then in the zoning bylaw of the municipality, as previously mentioned, there'll be a definition of short-term rentals, but as well as a definition of bed and breakfast establishments. The current definition is out of date, and so it'll be replaced with a bed and breakfast establishment needs a part of an owner-occupied dwelling unit in which not more than 3 bedrooms are used or maintained for the accommodation of the traveling public, and in which the owner of the dwelling unit supplies lodgings with or without meals for hire or pay, but does not include a group home, tourist establishment, or short-term rental or a hotel. Under section 3.0, under definitions, a definition of a short-term rental or short-term accommodation will state that it means a dwelling unit or part of a dwelling unit used to provide temporary accommodation for not more than 30 consecutive days, and does not include a hotel, motel, or a bed and breakfast. Next slide, please. As indicated in the zoning bylaw, there are parking requirements, and the proposed amendments would add that there be a minimum parking requirement for residential uses as followed. The type or nature of the use, if it's a short-term rental, what would be required is 1 space for every bedroom or sleeping room or each suite used for the purpose of lodging for the traveling public, in addition to the required parking for the dwelling unit. Also, clauses would be added to the zoning bylaw that state that no more than 3 bedrooms or areas in a dwelling unit are permitted to be used for short-term rentals. After research, staff have concluded that this will ensure that the primary residential character of the neighborhood is maintained, that adequate parking is provided, that any nuisances that normally may arise from rental units, like excessive noise, are less likely to occur, and that the use does not turn into an apartment or an other use in the future that is not permitted or desirable in the residential neighborhood. It is important to note that if any person or public body wishes to be notified of any council decision on this proposal, which will be considered by council in the future, likely on the May 19th council meeting, must send a written request to me, Maury O'Neill, at my email, moneil@wawa.cc, or drop off or mail to the municipality, Wawa 40 Broadway Avenue. If any person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but they do not make an oral submission at this public meeting or provide a written submission to the municipality before the bylaw is passed, then they will not be entitled to appeal any decision of council. Next slide, please. In terms of the next steps and comments for council, as the deputy clerk would note for council, there have been no written comments received to date by staff other than the Algoma Health Unit, advising that it has no objections to these amendments. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to hear comments for or against from any members of the public. And the next step would be to review those comments and concerns and bring them to consideration for a final bylaw to be presented to council on March 19th. And should council accept these amendments, there would be a statutory 20-day appeal period that would last until April. Once these zoning amendments and official plan amendments go through this process, and if they are adopted, then council would have to approve a licensing bylaw, and that bylaw is prepared in draft and will be circulated for public comment and be brought back to council for adoption in April. Once all these regulatory requirements are met, a licensing system could possibly be put into place to begin on May 1st, and that's a proposed date until members of the public have opportunity to comment. I think that was the last slide. So thank you to Mayor and Council, and I turn it to you, but I am available if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Maury. We'll now move on to item 4.4 in the agenda, public comments on short-term accommodations. Item A, Algoma Public Health.
Algoma Public Health had no comments on the application.
Thank you very much. Item B, comments from the floor, either for or against. Is there any comments? Leslie, did you want to come up? Manuela will give you the microphone. We'll ask you to use it for those on Zoom. Or if you just want to stand so they can see you.
I just have a quick question. The licensing fee is a yearly fee, correct? Yeah. And then is the town doing anything in terms of like a tourism levy to collect any type of funds from any of the short-term accoms that are here in town?
At this time, the town is considering a municipal accommodation tax, which I think you're referring to, but there's been nothing formally adopted yet. Heidi, did you want to stand up and maybe say your name?
Sure. I suppose this question is for Kevin. So when this materializes, if and when this materializes, what will the processing be in terms of auditing these units for safety? Will it be done like regularly, like the motels are, to make sure that they're fire coded? I'm just curious how this is going to go about, if it's going to be done annually or what the process will be, Kevin.
Yeah, we're setting up a fire inspection that would probably happen yearly, but we're probably going to put the onus on the owner to provide the information, and then we review it. If we have any questions, then we would go to the property or the building and inspect it ourselves.
Okay, so you will not initiate the safety inspection process, or you will?
I will initiate the inspection on the first application.
Sure.
And then after that, we determine the process that would follow.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Hi guys, it's Anya. I just have a question about opening this up entirely from a bylaw and zoning perspective, and if there's been consideration given to a cap of permitting a certain number of Airbnb units to exist here. Just in regards to like the housing initiatives and all of these types of things, increased density, and if there was any kind of plan to just safeguard, like who knows what's going to happen, but maybe there's a magic number or percentage to try and stay under.
Maury, did you hear that question? I'll pass it over to you because we definitely have had those conversations, Anya.
Yes, thank you, Anya. And for Mayor and Council, staff did review other municipalities who have, as Anya's suggesting, put a cap on the total number of units in the community. But based on our research in Wawa, it's not a recommendation at this time. It doesn't mean that in the future, it might be something that staff comes forward with. But on a percentage basis, even though we've seen up to 30 short-term rental units advertised on Airbnb, it's still less than 1% of our residential units in the community, which is far less than most municipalities are dealing with. So at this time, we don't think the number of short-term rentals in the municipality is creating any nuisances or problems for the municipality. We also believe that there was an increase in demand due to COVID and then the pent-up demand from tourists, along with the fact that our area mines were using contractors at a large amount during their construction phases during COVID at the same time. So we believe that the market will be regulated by itself based on demand. But at this time, no recommendation is being made to council on a cap of the community. But it doesn't mean that that can't be brought forward if nuisances and the system's unmanageable in the future. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the floor?
I'm okay right here.
Can I encourage you to stand up?
Sure.
Thank you.
My biggest concern, I guess, is basically the housing shortage in Wawa. It's been ongoing for years. I mean, I was moved back here in 2005, and it was a housing shortage. I got a house by phoning people up. I believe I was interviewed by Daniel at the time about that very same problem. So I can't see that how increasing the amount of short-term rentals, I'm not trying to crap on anybody, but how that's going to help the municipality attract families. I do believe it, may help tourism, but if you have a family living in that home, that family supports a lot more the community than tourists coming in and out. Meaning, their kids play hockey, their kids go to dance, their kids are in their school. They're constantly shopping for groceries here because there's nowhere to go. They're not bringing their own groceries in. So I'm kind of wondering, like, what's going to help the next family trying to get in here? Because I didn't get any help. I got lucky. And that hasn't changed since 2005. So that's a huge concern. We have three operating mines here. We have at least two planefuls of people, employees with paychecks flying out every week. Or some of those paychecks could be here, increasing our tax base, whatnot. But like that's a huge concern. I came in from out of town, moving back to Wawa, and I was all hip hip hooray for that until I got here and ended up living with my mother, which was not a bad thing. But when you're moving here with 3 kids and a wife, and you have no house, it's pretty concerning. So how in this grand scheme of things is that going to help create housing in Wawa or liberate some housing for families to come in? And on the amendment itself, I give kudos to the town because we should have had this a while ago, and at least it's coming into play. But one of the issues that I'm kind of noticed is that in the licensing issue, there are people that are living around the proposed residence that's going to be turned into a short-term rental. Do they have any say? I mean, I can't build too big of a shed or a garage in my yard without getting say from people around my residence, as far as I know. So what is going to be the safety net for the people that have residences to protect them from having short-term people staying inside? Whoops, sorry. So anyways, it's just something to think about. Is there any thought behind it? So I guess it wasn't just towards you, Maury. It's towards the council too.
For sure. And if you want, I can take a stab at answering that question, or I can receive it as a comment, whatever you prefer. And
How about both?
You want? How about both?
Sure.
For sure. So, absolutely.
Can I sit now?
Absolutely. And Claude, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Claude, I think your comments are absolutely, they're 1000% valid, and it was a question that I brought up at the onset of this conversation, you know, because we are, myself and all the members around the council table, we do recognize that we do have a shortage of housing in Wawa. And I think council's really taking a really concerted approach on how we're trying to like approach that. I'm you know, I'm in business. I have a business background, and I'm very I'm absolutely certain speaks to the fact that we can't over-regulate. You know, the municipality of Wawa is a government, and the government can't over-regulate what the market does. People in Wawa can certainly come in, they can buy the existing housing stock, but certainly, you know, entrepreneurs have that, they have that opportunity as well. To do that, short-term rentals is a thing that's here to stay. In the municipality of Wawa, at least in my opinion, does not have, you know, I think it would be an overreach of government to come down and say, we don't want any short-term rentals, or we only want a specific number. According to the data and the research that we've done, we don't have a lot of short-term rentals. It's certainly not a nuisance. We're not driving out people. Do we need more houses? Absolutely. So we're taking a multi-pronged approach. Wawa has created a housing pledge, a very aggressive housing pledge that we did not have to do. We're committed to building 59 houses before 2031. That we're showing we're committed to the provincial government, that we want to build these houses. We are applying for funding. And one of the first things that we're starting to do is get the land that we have in Wawa shovel ready and make sure that it's got correct infrastructure to support that new housing development. But at the same time, we want to support the entrepreneurs that are willing to invest in our community. So for sure, I hear what you're saying, I'm listening, but we have to attack the housing problem in Wawa, you know, a couple of different ways. So I think we want to support the people that are doing business in Wawa. We want to support the tourism sector in Wawa, and we need more houses. And if you stay till the end of the meeting, you'll see the funding applications that we do have on the table. We are lobbying and advocating to the government, and that's something that I know that I'm certainly very proud of, because this kind of development hasn't been discussed around the council table for many years. And Maury, I'll just pass over to you to see if I've missed anything.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for the comments. My addition onto what you've said is it is a multi-pronged approach, and there are many things that the municipality is doing to try to create an environment that will facilitate the growth of housing. It has been a problem, and Claude, you've known since you moved here. But short-term rentals are going to exist in this community, whether they're regulated or not. They have existed here since I moved in 1989. It's not often that you might even know that one of your neighbors has a short-term rental unit, unless it becomes a nuisance. So they are scattered throughout the community. And when I said I made the comment about it's a benefit for owners, it's often, and I believe it was half the cases, that it's a bedroom that's being rented out in a home. And it's 1 or 2 bedrooms at a time. And it helps out because often these are homeowners that are looking for assistance in meeting mortgage payments or meeting the bills associated with that home. Again, there has not been any nuisances or complaints made to the municipality about short-term rentals. But there are a system of bylaws that are put in place to support any residential home owner that may be affected in a negative way by any short-term rental. And we have a noise bylaw enforced by our local OPP detachment. We have property standards bylaw that's enforced by our bylaw enforcement officer. So I know this is not a complete answer, but I'm just adding on to what I think the mayor said, and that is from staff's perspective and with my planning background and researching, there's at least 50 municipalities that are going through this process. I don't see it adversely impacting the current housing stock, but it's, even if council doesn't regulate it, it's going to continue because it has been happening in the municipality for years. This really is a system that's legalizing them so the municipality can take steps to include them in a future municipal accommodation tax, and to make sure that any accommodation meets fire and building codes. But I'll be happy to provide some more commentary to Claude when I return to Wawa. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Maury. Claude, I hope that that was helpful to you, but certainly.
Heidi here for those on Zoom again. So I think it's important to recognize that during COVID, and I'm speaking as an Airbnb operator, as well, someone who's volunteer quite a bit in the community with economic development and tourism. During COVID, a huge influx of Airbnbs started, and they were incredibly lucrative. It was a very, very lucrative business to run. So one of the keywords that Mayor Melanie used was entrepreneur. And as entrepreneurs, we are designed to make money. And I can say right now that with the 21 Airbnbs that are operating, we are all very, very slow. We are not making a lot of money. And there's overhead. So there's mortgages, there's tax payments, there's insurance payments. And when you're only renting 1, 2, 3 nights a month, that is eventually going to drop off. So I feel confident, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself as well, that there is a large possibility that 21 is going to go down to 15 and then go down to 10. And I feel that that will happen because there's a very niche group of us amongst Airbnb or short-term rental owners that can afford to function with 1 or 2 nights per month. I am making some assumptions for some of these properties that their overhead is considerate, but I think that they're going to dissipate. I think that the numbers are going to get smaller, and that in turn is going to open up housing because it's much more lucrative in a situation where you're only renting once or twice a month to have a full-time tenant for market rates on rent right now, which are pretty high. So just wanted to add to that as peace of mind.
So I think a summary of my comment is exactly, the market will take care of itself. The market always adjusts. As a core tenant in business, the market adjusts. Claude, I'll offer you the last set of comments.
Yeah, and I appreciate those comments. I mean, I fully understand, and I admire, people that are entrepreneurs. I'm not, but I'm strictly speaking for the people that I'd like to see in the municipality who are not here because they don't have the appropriate housing. I worked for an industry where we tried to, bring in professional people, workers, whether they were millwrights, whether they were laborers, whatnot. We couldn't do it because of the housing. And I think that any house, I walk around town a lot, people may see that, but anyways, I just find it a crying shame walking around town and seeing some nice houses that I'd like to see a family in, and they're empty. And, of course, things are slow right now, but to me, I don't see the benefit to the municipality of having short-term, an abundance of short-term rentals. And to me, the municipality should be able to somehow regulate it. Don't ask me how, I'm not part of that. But there should be a way that the municipality can clamp down and say, okay, we have enough as it is now. You know, one drops off, one comes in, okay. But I also think that the municipality should allow the people that are living around Airbnbs have some say.
Absolutely. And I hear your comments, and we certainly have had those conversations, and we'll ensure that when and if we feel like we've hit that tipping point, and we have had those discussions with a number of other communities, that we'll make sure that that kind of lever is included in the policy. So your point is extremely valid. But if there are no other comments, absolutely. Is there comments from council? Councillor Hoffman.
Okay, I think I know where you're coming from. You want to see housing in Wawa. So do we. And that's actually later on in the meeting, we're having a presentation from our Becca, and we're talking about putting in new plumbing in the streets to help put subdivisions so people can move into this town and live and pay taxes. And I think that's what you're asking. And we're trying to get that.
Is there any other comments from council? Councillor Rapato? Councillor Hatfield? Councillor Cannon? Okay. So we will now close this meeting.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the meeting closed at 7:42 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. Does anybody need a break? Are we okay? Perfect. So for those in the gallery, we'll now move on to the committee of the whole meeting. Feel free to stick around, but I'll give everybody a couple minutes if they want to sneak away. Pardon? You guys can all leave, or you can stay. It's riveting stuff. Yeah, it's council meeting. Regular council meeting. Matt's on here, though. We're talking about Matt. Thank you. Please leave the door open. It's a requirement of the Municipal Act. No, thank you. Please leave it open. You have to have an open door meeting. Okay, so we'll call this meeting to order and note the members present at 7:44 p.m. Item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. May I have a mover? Councillor Hatfield, may I have a seconder? Councillor Cannon, all in favor? Carried. Item number 5, adoption of minutes. 5.1, committee of the whole meeting, Tuesday, February 6th. May I have somebody make a motion to approve? Councillor Cannon? May I have a seconder? Councillor Hoffman? Oh, we had no delegations or presentations, so I just skipped it. All in favor? Carried. Item number 6, business arising out of previous minutes. 6.1, municipal accommodations tax update. Mr. Patterson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I have a short update on the municipal accommodation tax. As council knows, we did one consultation session previously. We have done a variety of research now over the past couple months on what other communities have done to answer some specific questions about the municipal accommodation tax. The number one question that we got during the last consultation session is what happens with the funds. And so that led us to do a bunch of research on what exactly a third-party organization looks like who gets the funds, because of course, with the MAT, that's the most complicated question to answer. So, as we've done some research now, we have a recommended model as a staff, but we need to test that with the community members and specifically the folks who are affected the most by the municipal accommodation tax, which would be the businesses who are collecting the tax. So we have a second consultation session planned. That consultation session is planned for 6:30 p.m. here on March 6, 2024. Similar to the last consultation session, with the added bonus of having an actual presentation, so we're not on the spot this time. So I've included for council's information the draft of that presentation. I'm not going to present it tonight because I'd really like folks to come out to the actual information session. So highly encourage council members to come out, EdTech members to come out, and of course members of the public are invited as well, to just get an understanding about some of the more detailed questions that were asked last time that staff didn't have a full answer to. So I have no recommendation for council tonight. It's just an informational memo to let council know where we're at in the process, to formally invite council to the consultation session, as well as to make sure that it gets out there to members of the public. We will also be doing what we did last time, so going door to door with businesses and sending direct emails out to short-term accommodations rentals to make sure we get as many people as possible come out to the meeting, and we're hoping for a similar turnout as last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Are there any questions or comments from council? Seeing none? Oh, does Councillor Jim have one? No. Okay, perfect. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to monthly reports. We've received 2 monthly reports, one from the Finance Department and one from Protective Services. Council will receive the reports, but in keeping with past practice, I'll ask council for any questions regarding the information that they've received. No questions from Councillor Opato or Councillor Hatfield, Councillor Cannon, Councillor Hoffman? No questions on the information received, so we will move on to new business. Item 8.1, draft fire department establishing and regulating bylaw. Mr. Sabrin, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I put in a memo to you, Council, showing that we've drafted an updated fire department establishing and regulating bylaw. The last bylaw was passed in 1996. During the fire review, Lomex Group, or our consultant, suggested that we update this bylaw to more current regulations. So today I've presented you with the draft bylaw for your consideration and review. And if you have any questions or comments, you should send them to the CAO, Maury O'Neill, before March 8th.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Is there any questions or comments from council this evening? Councillor Hatfield?
Kevin, what you gave us, how are you going to do that by yourself?
I think you're referring to a different report. This is a bylaw that we're suggesting?
I'm looking at, so what, you're not talking about the plan update and that. It's just the bylaw. Okay, I thought it was both together.
Are there any other comments or questions for Mr. Sabrin at this time? So again, I'd like to remind council, if they do have any questions or comments on the document received, to please reach out to Maury before March 8th.
Yes.
And your feedback will certainly be considered and your questions will be answered. Okay, item number 2. Ms. Weatherall, Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund.
All right, thanks, Mayor and Council. So recently the provincial government has issued a new funding program called the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund. What this does is the province is looking at funding 73% of projects that are eligible, with the municipality coming up with the additional 27%. So a brief overview. We did a water and wastewater master plan when I first started here a couple years ago. In that plan, we identified areas for residential growth, specifically looking at places like Churchill Phase 5, the empty lot on Algoma Street, as a way to intensify residential units in that area of town that are still developable. Things that came out of that report were that we would need additional water main servicing and sanitary servicing for those areas if we chose to go that route. So what I'm proposing and what I've worked on with our engineer of record, Crescent Engineering, is looking at installing a water main from Government Road down Tamarack to connect to Regina Crescent that would open up lots along the Churchill Phase 5 sort of side corridor there, and then looping the water mains from Regina to Maple, Maple to Birch, Birch to Superior. As operationally, it's a best practice. You don't want stagnant water sitting at the end of a pipe. They are more susceptible to freezing, and through looping and the addition of a sanitary service that would go along that sort of looped section of that street infrastructure, you would see that you can add, again, more housing sort of along that, the Tamarack side or end of all those streets. So hoping that that kind of addresses a comment from earlier this evening. I think we're looking, if we end up being able to open up Churchill Phase 5, you're looking at an additional 70 units of housing. Putting this water main down Tamarack will be more palatable for developers as infrastructure to service that subdivision will now be in place. So what our portion would cover is, again, the water servicing, the sanitary sewers that'll be needed for those houses, but it also gives us an opportunity to pave Tamarack, which is a level of service I know a lot of residents have been looking for in the community. So again, it's addressing many needs with sort of one big project. The total project cost, we broke it down. It doesn't include concrete work like curbs and gutters or sidewalks, but it does include asphalt paving, all the servicing required for both your sanitary and water service to the identified lots. It also comes with, I think I said hydrants and things like road resurfacing, so the asphalt. So in total, to go from Government Road all the way down to Superior with a water main connecting everything through, it's going to cost about $2.6 million, with our portion being $707,000. All of that is coming from already existing funding that we receive, like OSIF, federal gas taxation in 2025, and then the general capital reserve, which our taxpayers pay into anyway. And so we're hoping that if we are successful in receiving this application, that we're able to move forward with this project. I think it addresses a lot of concerns that residents of the community and mayor and council have, as well as municipal staff, and that we really have an opportunity here to sort of open up a corridor, get some interest back in some of these properties that are available, and hopefully having service lots will be more palatable for developers or a person who is looking to build a home, and perhaps through some of the other funding that comes available to homeowners, that somebody might be able to build a home in our community. So we're hoping that mayor and council agree with this initiative, and that if we are successful, will grant us the $750,000 we've asked for, just to have a contingency on top of the 707 that it's actually going to cost us. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Is there any questions or comments from council? Councillor Hoffman, do you have a question?
I want to say bravo, you're doing it. I wanted housing in this town and you're starting the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cannon, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Hatfield? Councillor Rapato? So Rebecca, Ms. Weatherall, so just to clarify, by completing this project, assuming the municipality is successful for funding, would this position us to get a little bit closer to our goal of completing our 59 houses by 2031 as we set out in our housing pledge?
Yes, it would get us that little bit closer to make some lots available to make them palatable for people to purchase lots that are fully serviced, ready to go. We just need to get your house connected. That's the biggest hurdle once we get there.
Perfect. And so what you're looking for from council tonight is to support this program so we can submit our funding application, which is due in April 19th, you said?
Yep.
So you are looking for a resolution for that?
Yes, please.
For notional support for council to approve a budget amount of 750, or not a notional support, to just approve a budget amount.
Yes, please.
And you've indicated 4 sources outlined in your submission?
Yep.
Perfect.
Work with
And
Manuel to
will
come up
that
with
be
them.
on the next regular budget meeting, or will we see that on the March 5th?
But you'll see that tonight.
Okay, perfect. So I think based on the comments received from council and hearing no objections, I believe that council is aligned with your proposal as recommended.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there are no items under item number 9, 10, or 11. So the next meeting date will be Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. So we will adjourn tonight's meeting 7:57 p.m. May I have somebody make a motion to adjourn? Councillor Rapato? All in favor? Carried. And we will now move on to our regular meeting agenda. Does anybody need a break before we move on? Oh, I'm not sure, but we can take that offline afterwards. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. So we'll now move on to the regular council meeting agenda. I'll now call the meeting to order and note the member at 7:58 p.m. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Hearing and seeing none. Item number 3, approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Hoffman, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. There are no delegations or presentation. There are many announcements and giving of notice on the agenda. Please feel free to take a look. Are there any announcements that council would like to make?
I just want to say, there's nobody here now, but so Friday night at the, Carnival, yes. I want to thank Alec and his crew and whoever else was on that organizing committee for doing such another good job on our carnival. And I just want to thank you guys for doing that.
And the fire department, the fireworks were wonderful.
Are there any other announcements this evening? I just wanted to acknowledge that we still have people in the gallery. Thank you very much for Mr. Sampson for still being here, holding out with us. No, I can connect with you later. can connect with you later. If you want. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can. Yeah. Okay. Item number 6, adoption of minutes.
Resolved by Councillor Rapato, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that the following minutes of the meeting of council be adopted as presented. Minutes of a regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, February 6, 2024, as contained on pages 1 to 10, inclusive of the minute book. Minutes of the special meeting of council held on Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, as contained on pages 1 and 2, inclusive of the minute book.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 7, there are multiple items listed in correspondence. Deputy Clerk, is there anything we should pay particular attention to?
Item 7.1 sets April 1st as the effective date of the new community safety, under the Community Safety and Policing Act, of the new detachment board for the OPP. Item number 2 speaks to the land disposition in northern municipalities. So crown lands for the needs of municipalities. The third item was having to do with the Roman Ogre Conference. It was a recommendation that was brought forward to combine those two conferences. This was rejected in the past, and it's not recommended to move forward. And the last one I have no comment on.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item number 8, the consent agenda.
Resolved that the items listed, moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Opato. Resolved that the items listed under the consent agenda 8.2 to 8.3 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 9, staff reports, memos.
Moved by Councillor Hoffman, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive the following committee board minutes. Wawa Police Services Board, Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. Wawa Police Services Board, Wednesday, December 13th, 2023, Wawa Age Friendly Report, Wednesday, October 25th, 2023.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 10, there is nothing. Item number 11, new business. Pardon. Sorry, I feel like I skipped something.
Sorry, no.
Number 9, staff reports, 9.1.
Resolved that the Council of Corporation of the moved by Councillor Hoffman, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive the following staff reports and memos. AP memo, Municipal Accommodation Tax Update. Finance Department MB 2024-05, January 2024 Monthly Report. Protective Services Department KS 2024-02, January 2024 Monthly Report. KS Memo Draft Fire Department Establishing and Recruiting Regulating Bylaw. DBRW 2024-04, Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund, HEWSF, and Opportunities for Tamarack Avenue.
All in favor? Carried. There are no items underneath 10, so we'll move on to item number 11, new business, 11.1.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hoffman. Whereas the municipality of Wawa received correspondence from the Royal Canadian Legion Wawa branch proposing to replace and relocate the cenotaph that is currently located in Queen's Park, and whereas the proposed new location would make it easier for the hosting of ceremonies, maintain, keep secure, and increase the visibility and reduce the incidence of vandalism, and whereas the Director of Community Services and Tourism provided a memo to Council at its February 6, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting in support of the request, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Wawa supports staff AP memo Royal Canadian Legion Wawa branch cenotaph request in replacing and relocating the cenotaph at the front island of the Mishpachot Memorial Community Center, with specific design and construction being a partnership between the municipality of Wawa and Royal Canadian Legion, with a municipal staff member from the department assigned to the project, and furthermore, that council directs staff to continue work on the project that is in the capital budget under subject to funding in 2024, since staff.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 11.2.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hoffman, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive and endorse the Wawa Wastewater Performance Annual Report 2023, dated February 2024, Department, a copy of which is attached here too.
All in favor? Carried. 11.3.
Moved by Councillor Rapato, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive and endorse the Wawa Drinking Water System Annual and Summary Reports 2023, dated February 2024, as prepared by the Water and Wastewater Division, Infrastructure Services, a copy of which is attached here too.
All in favor? Generally, that's not permitted, but go ahead.
Rebecca, I just wanted to know, do those lagoons have a life, like, they don't last forever?
Want me just to repeat that? So yeah, so there's a liner in the bottom of the lagoons, especially the aerated ones, and those get cleaned, are beginning to be regularly as we keep up with legislation and operational requirements that we have. But we have a lot of life left in our lagoons, and that's not going to be a problem in the near or even far future at this point.
$11.4.
Sorry, we need to request all in favor.
Pardon?
All in favor of the last resolution.
All in favor? Carried. $11.4.
Moved by Councillor Hoffman, seconded by to pursue the Housing Enabling Water System Fund HEWSF program to connect the existing water mains on Government Road and Regina Crescent along Tamarack Avenue, and loop the existing water mains on Superior Avenue, Birch Street, Maple Street, and Regina Crescent that terminate on Tamarack Avenue. And whereas the project and associated funding would address opportunities for residential growth and improve current operational efficiency in the drinking water system, all while maintaining financial and operational risks to the municipality of Wawa. And whereas, if successful, the HEWSF funds 73% of the project cost, with the municipality funding the remaining 27%. And whereas preliminary cost estimates indicate a project value of $2,619,834. And whereas staff request that council approve a budget of $750,000 with the funding to come from the following sources: OCIF, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, $400,000; Water General Capital Reserves, $200,000; Canada Building Fund, $100,000; taxation in 2025, $50,000. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby support staff recommendation from report number RW 2024-04 in seeking support to pursue the Housing Enabling Water System Fund HEWSF program to connect the existing water mains on Government Crescent along Tamarack Avenue and to lift the existing water mains on Superior Avenue, Birch Street, and Regina Crescent that terminate on Tamarack Avenue, and further resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby accept and approve the municipal portion of the funding as outlined within this resolution.
All in favor? Carried. 11.5. You have to let her put it on the table? Yes.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Hoffman. Accept staff recommendation from staff report AP 2024-03, Olympia sharing agreement, and enter into an agreement with the communities of Marathon, White River, Big Tigong, Nishnabek, and Schreiber for the purchase, maintenance, and use of a backup ice resurfacer.
All in favor?
No, can I ask for a recorded vote? I didn't know that we had all decided on this.
Yes, you can have a recorded vote. So I will ask for votes left to right, and we will record. Councillor Hoffman?
Yes.
Councillor Cannon?
No.
Councillor Hatfield?
No.
I've recorded the vote. The resolution is defeated.
Thank you very much. Item number 12, there are no notice of motion. Item number 13, bylaws.
Resolved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Opato. Resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that the mayor and deputy clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule of this council, the contrary notwithstanding. Bylaw number 367524 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 6th of February 2024 and the 7th day of February 2024. Bylaw number 367624 to authorize the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa to enter into an agreement with the Wawa Food Bank for the lease of a portion of the west end of 96 Broadway Avenue lower floor for a food bank. Bylaw number 367724 to authorize the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa to enter into an agreement with Young's General Store respecting the land use permit for a sign on municipal property. Bylaw number 367824 to authorize the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa to enter into an agreement with Everything Floors Limited for the provision of replacing the flooring at Finished Cotton Memorial Community Center Banquet Hall, Curling Lounge, Gym, and Squash Courts. Bylaw number 367924 to authorize the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa to enter into an agreement with Central Refrigeration for the HVAC equipment and building automation system.
All in favor? Carried. There are no items under item 14, 15, 16. Item number 17, next meeting date, Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Item number 18, adjournment. 18.1, close of meeting, 8:14 p.m.
By Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hoffman, resolved that the meeting closed at 8:14 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for everyone's hard work this evening. Thanks to